Om Tejyan Yoga Nugata Pasyan Devatma Shaktim Sagunayarnagudam Yaha Karanani Nikilani Tani Kalatma Yuktanya Adidishtat Yekaha Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. Practicing the eternal yoga, the ancient seers of India beheld the Devatma Shaktim, the divine power, existing everywhere and within themselves, and who, though veiled by her own modes of nature, was nevertheless one and indivisible, and who had been hidden from them earlier only due to the limitation of their own intellects. Thus they declared, "There shines Brahman. May that Brahman protect us. May that Brahman sustain us, and may that Brahman illumine our thinking process. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings, and may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om Tat Sat." So at the end of a month of Sundays, which is a good expression to pull forth from our language and to indicate that this is the fourth and final class of the subject called Vedanta's Eternal Perfection and Yoga's Storing Up of Power. We wanted to put these two darshanas, the Uttara Mimamsa, that is Vedanta, together with Patanjali or Yoga Darshana, and show what a beautiful commingling and marriage there is of these two, because people are caught between the two poles sometimes of hearing the Mahavakyas, that thou art, especially if you've heard far too long from everyone in the society of today's world that about your imperfections and your limitations and your sins and various things like that. Then it's very nice to be able to hear that message, the non-dual message from Mother India, which is included inside of those Mahavakyas. Ayam Atma Brahma, Pragyanam Brahma, Tattvanamasi, and Aham Brahmasmi. So those four Mahavakyas are great sayings, are on one side, precious property of Vedanta, particularly Advaita Vedanta, because Vedanta broadens out to include Vishishta Advaita and also Dvaita, dualism, in its scope, which is accents to non-dual. And on the other side is Yoga Darshana, which is about climbing 8 limbs, basically, if you take it in the authentic way, named after the founder Patanjali. And so we know limb by limb, you start off with yamas and niyamas, there are 5 of each of those, and then ascend to that limb of that everyone's having so much problem with today, is just finding a single posture and sitting in it for a while. The postures themselves are not so important, it's just finding one and setting yourself for meditation like all the great ones did. And then the 4th limb of pranayama can be done, because you can't really breathe that well until your posture's fixed and you've mastered it, because breathing will be from one side or to the other, or the lungs will be squashed or pinched or too straightened. So it has to be a natural curve to the spine and legs. You can't have anga mejayatva. You know what that means in yoga, is the restlessness of limbs, means arms and legs. So that's why you settle them and don't think about them anymore. So then you can breathe. I'm saying 4th limb, 5th limb pratyahara, you can finally get to the mind. It's like building a temple from the ground up. Now we've gotten to the 3rd floor or the 5th limb. And now my mind falls suddenly into a very focused position almost naturally, because of mastering what went earlier. So I can just sit and focus. I don't need to think 5 yamas, 5 niyamas, asana, and pranayama anymore. In fact, maybe I won't even have to think the yamas and yamas or practice limb 3 and 4 once I've got it mastered. And then it becomes all about the mind, which is the next 2 limbs, possibly 3 limbs, is all about mind and intellect particularly. And of course, the ego taking a back seat. So that's when you get to that 5th limb of pratyahara, then you can readily and probably more successfully control the thoughts because they were coming at you before your breath, your prana wasn't under your control, so that your thoughts were erratic like your prana was. And then your posture also was shifting a lot because you hadn't settled into one. And then try and fall back on contemplating the yamas and niyamas, such as ahimsa and truthfulness and non-covetousness. If those things come at you through the society, through the world, through your own karmas, it becomes very difficult then. So there's maybe that first stumbling block of too much emphasis on asana, and then the next stumbling block is two limbs later when pratyahara has failed, can't get the mind together. So I'm saying that when you've built the castle of these limbs from the ground up, then when you get to pratyahara, it should be a matter of ease. Settle the mind. It's not thinking about anything below. It's thinking about everything in front of it and above or beyond. And that's when concentration settles in. Those who've achieved mastery of pratyahara and concentration afterwards, pretty much the game is over for them. The game of practice and unless it sets an example to others. And then, the game of mastery, if you want to call it a game. And that's that dharana. What I just chanted from the Upanishads was Te Dhyan Yoga. Then it gets to that yoga of meditation, Dhyan Yoga or Raja Yoga, which we're talking about today. We will be talking about is storing up of power. And when that's done, then meditation becomes as easy as concentration was after you mastered pratyahara. And then samadhi will come to you naturally as a matter of course. Just give it time. So if there is any practice left after the 6th limb, it's the practice of constancy. You just sit in it. And just like you would find you're cold and you find a nice hot spring in the mountain. What do? Practice going up to it, or do you find it and just sit in it? So basically you sit in that state of meditation without any expectations and wait for samadhis to happen to you. The father of yoga then goes back on the 4 padas of yoga and begins to describe the lower samadhis, the medium samadhis, and the higher samadhi, the one of higher samadhi. And so just wasn't planning on it or even bringing a chart on it, but letting you all remember quickly, that those of you who are watching and those of you who are here in the room, of the 8 limbs of yoga. So we're talking about storing up of power. And when I talked about it at satsang Saturday morning, which was yesterday, when a lot of us gathered, I was talking about it in terms of people thinking that when they hear about it, I have to go do it. How do I store up this power? And my response to that was, you're always storing up power. It's already within you, as the chant just related. They saw the Devatma Shakti existing in everything and within themselves. Devatma Shakti, Devatma, this deity, goddess of wisdom, and Shakti, the divine power. So they saw that existing within them. So it's already there. It's what, more than it has to be practiced, it has to be called up, located and called up. And in Vedanta, that's why Vedanta goes so nicely together with yoga, is you do it with the mind. Body and breath are already settled. So they're not acting as impediments. So body and breath cannot give you concentration or meditation. They'll only keep you from having them. But when you settle them, then the mind takes over, as it should. It's, oh mind, you are the sovereign of all other principles in this universe, Ram Prasad sings in one of his songs. So why have you fallen into counsel of the lower officials. Lower officials means, the senses, five senses, in cahoots with the dual mind around pleasures and avoidance of pain, all the things we know about in yoga that happen. So that's a song that's sung, and you become a petty potentate, the old mind. You're the noble royal monarch of all the realm of the senses. All the senses connect to you. So my point here is that your mind takes over. Call it the sixth sense if you want, but it's got a lot more power in it, a lot more of that Devatma Shaktim in it, that can, and it needs to think that way. See, whereas a body, is infirm, prana is uneven. Those were thoughts it was having earlier. Now it's having the thought of, my thoughts are impossible to control. Just read your Gita and see how Arjuna, and what they used to say to Swami Vivekananda when he tried to teach them some of the finer points of yoga, is that they're all thinking with doubt now. Like, I can't do that. So it's funny how people can think they can master the body, which is just a decaying piece of flesh, and that they can master the prana easily with a few breathing exercises, but now they can't master the mind. It's that difficult to control your thoughts. See, so this is what they think about later, but I'm saying from the opposite direction, once these pieces of the puzzle have been placed together nicely and evenly, and everything's becoming clear in the picture of the puzzle, then the mind of the Vedantas should be able to call up all of this memory of the divine power within it without any doubt in the way. So it's pretty amazing how many things get in the way of the body-mind mechanism on its way towards mastering the mind, or you could say the fifth limb, pratyahara. So then when it comes together, it's got access to real spiritual life, concentration, meditation, and samadhi, dharana, dhyan, and samadhi. And that should be a matter of course. This is where it makes sense to hear that if you're doing everything properly, you should be able to become a yogi in 6 months, as Vivekananda had said. So it's not possible to do that for most people because they're not hearing the teachings accordingly and following up with guidance. And they haven't gotten in the West any confidence in themselves that they're pure and perfect by nature. Nobody's told them that, as I was railing on and on about last Sunday. So we need to be told, supported. The Guru's the one person that does that, who's embodied. Usually, hopefully you find them in an embodied condition. The seers are the other beings that do that, but they're in a book, as they call the Holy Scripture, which carries a lot of weight. So all of that said as a kind of preliminary to today's fourth and final class on this subject, back to my point that you're always storing up power as long as you're engaged in spiritual practice. That power tends to leak away when you stop. And part of that, because the memory is lodged in the mind, then when the mind becomes weak and the memory becomes weak, and that's what's happened to the society today, all societies really, is they've forgotten their divine nature, basically, because of forgetfulness. And then once forgetfulness sets in, there's a lot of other reasons that they can't remember. Attachment to objects, desires, the 6 passions and the 5 fetters, in yoga, the 9 antarayas. You can come up with all sorts of reasons why it's very difficult to find your true nature now once it's been lost. It's like ox herding again. I brought that up 2 Sundays ago. Well, I lost the tracks. My ox went into the jungle. I have to find it. But today I lost the tracks. Where am I going to find it in this huge, massive jungle? So they talk about that in Zen, about finding the ox, which is your busho, they say there, your Atman, your true nature. So then again, to accent my point for today is that you're always storing up power. Keep that in mind as long as you do practice. And if you give up that practice, that's when you find out that the clay jug of my mind has a few little tiny cracks in it. And the honey nectar of my consciousness is leaking out through those cracks when I stop practicing. So as I keep practicing, the liquid moves, as it were, and it doesn't seep, see, and it begins to collect, and you can then store it up. So then let's jump in on the actual teachings, because we have just an hour or so in which to finish this part of the 4-part class. Because as I can perk your memories, this chart is what we've been looking at, the proper delineation of power. And let me call up my chart here, so I don't have to crane my neck so much. And we don't need to go through this, but you can see that the two distracting elements of nature were the first two things we looked at. One was its beauty, and the other was its atomic power. So those were two things inside of nature and its power that distract people. Then we went through the 8 occult powers, remember, and it showed us how those the covering power and so forth is influencing people's mind. And this is part of that forgetfulness. You see that Sri Ramakrishna said, you see the garden, but you forget the gardener. So people get reborn in nature, in the body, reincarnated, and they haven't kept up their practice and stored up that yogic power in a previous lifetime, and then they fall victim to this forgetfulness. But those who do come and are marvelously aware of divine reality when they're born, from their young age up, or to remind them is to bring them up immediately out of that forgetfulness, those beings have been storing up power for lifetimes. Maybe they're storehouses of power, like Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, and they can be connected to, like a huge eternal battery that people charge themselves on. And this Devatma Shaktim is in him in the fullest amount. That you'll find that in the Ramakrishna Upanishad. Yes, there's more than 108 nowadays. So basically, the Ramakrishna Upanishad has been written recently since Sri Ramakrishna made his appearance, and some beautiful slokas in that. Gods and goddesses flocked to him and manifested themselves in him in great numbers. It's like a sloka out of the Ramakrishna Upanishad. And another one is, as I was just mentioning here. So basically, that's these two kinds of power in the first kind of power, the two aspects of the first kind of power. So nature, they're a little wary of. What was it? Inexplicably hiding and unaccountably missing. Okay, that title for my new article. So I got up a couple of mornings ago and said, I was talking about God going into hiding here, Divine Mother disappearing behind the veils of nature. So they come here and they just look at nature and go, wow, and they engage in it, but they don't go see the gardener. So inexplicably missing, unaccountably hiding. See. So I started writing that article to explain how the devotees come here, and when they see the attracting power of nature, it's not attracting to them, it's painful. Oh, I don't want to see that anymore. Walk into a great room with a beautiful view. The Swami walked over to the picture window and closed the curtains. Oh, but Swami, we got you this room so you can see the view. He said, I'm not attracted to anything out there. I've got everything I need inside myself. So a soul like this, is used to looking at the inner vista. The only reason why the rest of us aren't doing that is because we're attached to the outer vista and we haven't found the inner vista yet. So we can't have that view, so we're not attracted to it. It's not until you get to heaven you can have some of that view. The higher lokas, the life heavens they're called in India. And then you go, beautiful, because you have subtle senses then, and you gave up your gross senses. But back to reincarnation again, you give up your subtle senses and take on the gross senses again. And there you are, just seeing dualities everywhere. And you have to be satisfied with the beauty of objects, which doesn't go very deep, does it? Even with bodies, beauty is skin deep, is that the expression even we have here? And the skin isn't always so beautiful either. So this may be going on a bit long in reminding you of the first echelon that we looked at of this chart, so we can say we mastered this chart once we finish this class. Then we looked at the 8 occult powers, which I won't dredge up against for you, but you can look back on this class series and also into Footfalls of the Indian Rishis, our new book, and seek charts on those teachings so that you can be wary of dominating over others and trying to make yourself look good instead of finding the inherent goodness inside of yourself and letting that do the work for you, and other strange anomalies of the human mind that takes them away from the great search, the inner journey, the inward ascension back to their true self. And so last week we concluded that third class with a look at all the occult powers. And then I said, now it's time to look at yoga and the storing up of power. So that's what's the bottom here. And I'll read this for you so we can launch officially and finally into yogic power, as opposed to occult powers, as contrasted to nature's powers. We all understand that threefold division, I hope, because then we're on the same page, and it will make the study of yogic power and the storing up of yogic power all that much more sweeter. So there you see the Pancha Mahasiddhas, the 8 Astabala Siddhas. Now look at how they differ from occult power and its attraction to Pancha Mahasiddhas, the great perfections. So this goes back as far as Lord Copula. He says, commanding a spiritual path. And I'm not going to comment individually in all these because I want to show you a chart that will sum up basically this storing up of power concern for us. But commanding a spiritual path, see, I found my path, I found my teacher, now I'm walking the path, I'm benefiting from the path. Wouldn't these be great things to say to yourself or your mind or to your ego and say, you're fine, you just stay on the path because, you know, my teacher told me that if you stay on the path, you're storing up power all the time. So don't give that up. Then gaining right knowledge of scripture. Many accounts of people reading a scripture and then the guru comes up and says, well, tell me something. And they can't, you see. They just read a whole book and they can't remember anything that's in it. So that has to be something that you gain right knowledge of doing. Just like you don't want to go out and operate heavy machinery until you read the manual and had an instructor, then how much more important with a subtle spiritual art like this that, you know, before you dive in to a great scripture like the Vivekananda or Bhagavad Gita or any of the Upanishads, which we'll be starting next week, by the way. We'll take up that Shrika Upanishad, the sharp knife that cuts through ignorance. So before you dive into those kinds of scriptures, then you're going to want to be guided into how to approach each sloka or each sutra, what to glean from them and how to glean it, and then how to contemplate it in your mind, manana, and how to come to a conclusion. Those are 5 different steps right there that are included in this gaining right knowledge of scriptures. And you know, it's the 5th one that people of great intellect fail to get to, like Western practitioners. Oh, I didn't make a conclusion about it all. So make a conclusion about it is Vedanta Siddhanta Nirukti Resha Brahmaiva Jivaham Sakalam Jagad Cha. I've realized that all of this is Brahman. The scriptures tell me so, and I accept it now 100%. I've heard the truth, and the truth will set me free. As John said that when he heard Jesus speak. So basically, that is a quick commentary on that second Mahasiddha. Then achieving the ability to study and concentrate. Go back to what I was just saying about yoga. If you're climbing that tree of yoga, what do you have? After pratyahara, you have dharana and jhana. You have concentration and samadhi, and meditation, sorry. So here it is. The ability to study and concentrate is considered to be one of the great accomplishments of spiritual life in both yoga and Vedanta. So if you had that ability to concentrate, you could then aptly and directly put your mind on the Mahavakyas or on the Vivekachudamani and understand what's meant by Vacham Nyacha, Tam Nyacha, Buddhaudiyam Yacha Chavudi Shakshini, right? How to dissolve the words back into your mind, and your mind into the intellect into the ego into the witness into Brahman, or into Atman, Atman into Brahman. And so what, you're supposed to hear that sloka and you haven't gained right knowledge of how to understand it, and you haven't gotten the ability to study and concentrate on it. So you read it once and put it down, and your teacher asks you, what was that sloka? What's it mean? And you say, I don't remember. So this is why these are great perfections. If you get over the three kinds of suffering, outer, inner, and so forth, and transcendent, then basically these come to you. And so these are great accomplishments that father of Samkhya Yoga, father of Patanjali Yoga, and the father of Vedanta, Vedavyas, namely, have all agreed with. This is what you want. This is a true spiritual life. And dancing and singing, even meditating for years, and serving others as in the right spirit, those are good. But basically, one yoga to see God, and three yogas to help the world. One yoga to see God is this Jnana Yoga, self-knowledge. The other three are to meditate in the world after you've gained it, because that benefits the world. And then to serve all beings as God, because that helps them see God in human form. And three, increase your devotion to God, because you can do that once your ignorance is gone, because you practice Jnana Yoga. So one yoga, it'll be another article coming up, or even a seminar or something. One yoga to see the Lord, three yogas to help the world. And that's what we're looking at next, the four yogas. I'll show you in a minute, but let's finish these Mahasiddhas. Gaining an illumined guru and a supportive sangha is considered one of the great accomplishments. So if you have that, smile. If you have that, bring your hands together. If you have that, be joyful and also content. And you don't need to go wandering around or having any doubts, or tell the mind, like I was saying yesterday at the satsang and God blogs, how many beautiful things do I have? Brahman, I have the Divine Mother, I have Vedanta, I have yoga, I have good food to eat, I have knowledge of the scriptures and the scriptures themselves. You can go on listing all these great boons that you have inside of yourself by the auspice of the Devatma Shakti who dwells there in you. All you have to do is put your mind on him, and you're constantly storing up power. And this is something that should bolster your confidence in yourself. Because it's not easy to hear, I am Atma Brahma, or this self is Brahman, and believe it at first. Lifetimes have been spent around people who don't even know what you're talking about when you say that. They haven't separated the wheat from the chaff, number one. Number two, they don't know that there is wheat. So that's the world here called the Burloka. If you don't know there is God, how can you say, I don't believe it exists? If you haven't experienced God, then why are you even opening your mouth and venturing an opinion, you see? Wait till you've tried to experience God or had an experience of God, then come back and write a scripture like the Vivekachudamani and tell people how to use the method to get there, the method of yoga, how to store up power so that you can see the Lord face to face. Like Mahatma Gandhi said about Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. When we see Sri Ramakrishna, we see God face to face. So that's the kind of direct cognition and perception of the Lord of the universe and the Divine Mother behind them, the avatars that you need to have. So it all connects here with the illumined guru and the supportive sangha, because all of them are in the thick of that with you. When they arrived here in the body, they also went, oh, there's nothing here that attracts me. In fact, most of this kind of averse to all the things they're running after. I was hearing today that, oh, somebody visited, their brother visited, so when their brother visits, they go golfing together. But then when they're golfing, when there's a break in the golf, they say, well, I think maybe let's have a drink. So they don't drink, basically. So they say, well, let's have a drink. So they go and have a drink. See, so this opening of the avenue to entertainment, to insouciance, to being other than who you really are and how you really live, can come about if you don't have a guru and a sangha to refer to and to spend time with. And this is going to be the fourth of these great Mahasiddhas. So you can see they're just ticking them off one at a time, till there's this pancha, another fivefold teaching that we could put in with the 5 elements and the 5 senses and the 5 kleshas and the 5 this and that. So each one of these deserves, if not demands, attention. Go back and say, do I have that? How deeply do I have it? And how can I increase it? And number 6 there is achieving self-purification. I was going to remind myself to bring that chart, but I actually kind of explained it last week, that there are 3 kinds of purity. One is purity of location, and purity of action is next, and purity of mind. So your home is the location. You want to make it divine. You want to turn your very home into a divine habitation for the Lord who is existing within you as the Atman. And then you want to breathe the holy air there, and burn incense there, candles, worship there, meditate there, study there. All these things can come more readily into your possession when you have purity of location. And then when you go out of that location, you must learn to take that purity with you and exemplify it to the rest of the world. So that's purity of act. You have to go in front of people and, what are you doing now? Going golfing? No, I'm going down to see my guru and my sangha. And I'm going to engage in a few hours of deep discourse on the nature of divine reality. That's what I'm doing today. And this will be of the highest good to me, as Vivekananda said. That will be of the highest good to you, much more than mastering the powers of nature. I came across that quote yesterday, so it fits perfectly with this chart. Purity of mind, hardest to attain. So if you were storing up power and you got to the 5th limb, 6th limb of yoga, pratyahara and dharana, and you achieved concentration, and from then on, your mind didn't wander. And so I don't remember what fear is. I don't remember what doubt is. I don't remember what unsurety is. I just know I all of a sudden got focused, and I decided I wanted to stay there in focus. Nobody likes to watch a movie out of focus. And this movie of life then has to be kept in focus, or else, it's sours. It doesn't satisfy, and it's painful to live in that kind of atmosphere. So purity of mind is, again, kind of a threefold teaching. Location first, action next, mind third and foremost. So this has taken us through these Pancha Mahasiddhas. Please go back and oppose them straight across to the 8, these 5 to these 8, and then go back and contrast them to what you're seeing in nature and how attached you are to it or not. And it's not just a matter, because we know a lot of people who got very bitter in life, like the older generation before us. We saw them have some sort of zest for life, and then when they started to get older, they got bitter and cranky and angry and complaining. It's kind of a common thing for older people to end up in that predicament. Nobody wants to go near to take care of them because they're always complaining and so cranky and everything. So very few are those older people who age gracefully, I think the expression is. And you can actually go to them and get teachings. Well, where does that happen in your family? And then sit with grandma or granddad or great grandma and see what they have to say to me, but all they have to do is complain. or they've lost their mind. They can't find words anymore. But you go to the elderly, illumined souls of spiritual families called Sangha and Guru, and they're right there readily able to teach you. Oh, even when his throat was bleeding from cancer, he would go on teaching people. Holy Mother said about Sri Ramakrishna. So his concern was only for those people around him, and the time he had left on earth was of little matter, of little significance to him. He had to spend it in helping others. So, I mean, that could only be done if this first yoga had been realized and these three yogas were busy helping the world through such a teacher. If you can even call a soul like that a teacher. All right, I think I've said a piece to consider about these Pancha Mahasiddhas. Again, across the board to these, and in contrast to nature's powers, we're looking at three different kinds of powers, and we're storing up. So goodbye to this chart. Let's see. We've taken both the quotes already on the top and bottom of it. So let's look at this chart on 4 yogic living, which will, in the time remaining, will kind of summate for us this topic of storing up power, and it will also explain to us how that's done. It reminds me of Holy Mother's teaching that when people are saying, well, I don't see any appreciable growth in me, even though I'm doing mantra and I'm meditating, I'm reading the Gita, but where's my spiritual growth? And she said, you can't really see that happen to you. You just awaken to it in time. So the storing up of power isn't something that you can measure, like storing up of grain in a barrel, or gold dust at a river, or sesame oil. After you press a bunch of sesame seeds, it's not, you can't measure it that way. It's not of this earth. It's a different kind of treasure, as Jesus said. So you have to wait for it to manifest itself. So this storing up of power that's going on, wait a few years or a decade or 2 or 5, if needs to, by just continually doing your sadhana, your practice, and then see how you feel about it. See, well, actually, all these things are coming to me now, like a Dharma mega samadhi, right? Remember the opposite of the acquisition of the Astabala Siddhas? We put that off against that chart in Dharma mega samadhi. It's a father of yoga's teaching that the rain cloud of virtues comes to you if you keep your practice up and avoid these 8 occult powers. Otherwise, holes in the clay jug of your mind, seeping out that Devatma Shaktim to no avail, to no merit. And you want to store that up. So storing it up happens then as you consistently practice. And remember, these 5 Pancha Mahasiddhas we just looked at, if you want a guide to storing up power, a manual, you probably should look at those. And then you'll know how, and be in an affirmative mode that these 5 are actually what are helping you store up power. Here's a quote by Swami Vivekananda. He says, "Be not afraid, but work on with the intrepidity of a lion, at the same time with the tenderness of a flower. For what is wanted are muscles of iron, nerves of steel, inside which dwells a mind of the same material as that of which the thunderbolt is made. Be among the world's bravest and best, who are willing to sacrifice themselves for the good of the many. Buddhas by the hundreds are necessary." Okay. We can look back to a particular Buddha or a particular Krishna or Ram and feel very glad that we saw a great soul like that on earth. But what we need now is hundreds of those coming forth to change the tone and tenor of the suffering of this world, to awaken souls. Again, you only give me fame, you only give me power when you talk about newspaper blazing. Vivekananda said when he got popular in the West, what I want is to see thousands of people coming to the Lord. So right there in front of the Christian naysayers and the worldly newspapers and their reporters, he said that. I want to see thousands of people coming to the Lord. And the Lord to him was something multi-religious. Every religion had the Lord in it. Whether you called it Brahman or Allah or Yahweh or whatever you would call it, it was there. And so those beings have to turn and return to that one divine presence, which the best avenue for is their own self. So that's why storing for power in the self will reveal the self. You cannot get enlightenment through the mind. You can only get it through the Atman, he said once. So you have to purify the mind so the channels are open, the nadis. Then all of a sudden the Atman gets revealed. So Advaita Vedanta sadhana is much different than the other ways or methods or means that people go about trying to release themselves of suffering or trying to get rid of ignorance. It's much different than, I'll say it this way, yoga psychology is much different than psychology and therapy of the West. This yoga psychology, as we can see, is very deep and goes to the source and eradicates what's veiling your true nature there, based on the affirmation that there is a self there. I want to bring thousands of people coming to the Lord. He's not like demurring and saying, oh, well, I better not say God, or I better not say the Lord, because both the Hindus and the Christians are tired of that, see. But no, he went ahead and said it. I wanted thousands of people coming back to the Lord of the universe, the Lord of the self, and the Divine Mother, that Shakti, that's the Devatma Shakti that accompanies that soul, that great soul. Ishvara is what we would call it in our tradition. So this quote is very beautiful to comment on it. And really, he started it out talking about karma yoga, didn't he? So let's see how we store up power through action. There's the points. On the second entry there, karma yoga, with Mother Saraswati holding one yoga in each hand. And she's like giving off the teachings of bhakti, jnanam, karma, and raja being authentic yoga. So it says, do work as worship, labor as love. Both of those were coined by Swami Vivekananda. So it's easy to call them out, put them here, and let people know that let's keep with the current thought here, is that when you're working and doing this worship and you're laboring with love, you're storing up power, okay? It's not like you go out and do something, come home and say, well, that's done, and nothing happened. You're storing up, say, at least good merit or good karma for having done that, and that karma is pure if you've done it selflessly than if you had any personal motives behind it. But those two beside, good and bad karma, you've actually stored up power inside of yourself by opening a nadi or an avenue, an inner roadway to enlightenment through karma yoga. So these are the dynamics of how yoga works behind the scenes that nobody thinks about. Engage only in conscious actions. So if unconscious actions willy-nilly, you see, are going on just like thoughts are going on, you stop them right there. And you go back to the sixth limb of yoga and say, I gained concentration just so I would think like this or act like this. So I'm throwing away my whole practice of concentration and trashing it because I'm letting acts and thoughts go random on me. So do everything consciously. Swami Ramakrishnananda, Sashi in the Gospel, I heard him say that. They asked him a question. He started out, first of all, make sure you do everything consciously. The question wasn't anything about that. So he was just calling our attention to the fact that no matter what you do think, like in the three types of purity, or the actions you do it all consciously. He wanted to put that out first before he answered their question. Marvelous. Third bullet point, serves family and spiritual causes. So when you're doing that in the spirit of karma yoga, that is, all acts are done selflessly without the desire for the fruits, for the highest good of mankind, period, then you are storing up power by serving family and by supporting your guru, your sangha, and the seers and saints who are keeping these teachings available for the world. And then in Karma Yoga, you're also known to renounce the fruits of action, basically a follow-up on that. It almost would take up the rest of the class and more to talk about how renunciation stores up power. And if you haven't made that connection yet, then I don't know what else to say. How long have you been in Vedanta? How long have you been practicing yoga? How long have you been doing tantric worship? How long have you been studying the 24 cosmic principles? How long have you been looking at the Indian darshan and then all of a sudden not be able to know that if you renounce something, it stores up power? Like renounce sex, it stores up power. Renounce food, it stores up power. And the power is in the mind, you see, first. Says, my mind is strong now because I'm not thinking about these things which are extraneous. And now it can be traced to its source, see. So this one is a no-brainer. It's self-explanatory. Practice renunciation and watch your power grow. Quit giving your energy to outer things, the energy of your senses, store that up. The energy you spend on swimming and hiking and looking at the beauties of nature, store that up for a while. Try and see something inward, like the Swami who closed the curtains on the window, in the picture window. I'm going to go back and store up everything now by looking inside. And use that to benefit people. Fifth bullet point there, or fourth, cares for the poor and the unfortunate. It's one aspect of Karma Yoga that they like to bring forward a lot. And is careful not to transgress Dharma. You can put that in with the Jnana Yoga Darshana too, but it fits there in Karma Yoga because sometimes people do inadvisable acts, unthought acts, and they accidentally transgress the Dharma. And they go back, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry about that. I take that back, or I wish I could take that back. And therefore, they have to, as Sri Ram said, always be a supporter of the Dharma, never be its detractor. He told his brother Lakshmana, always be a supporter of the Dharma, never be its detractor. So you have to be very careful in that way. All right, that's one yoga down, 3 to go. As we look at it all under how it stores up power in you. So if you have any wondering thoughts to say, I don't know how to store up power. That's a question that your mind shouldn't be asking. You were just given a 2-hour teaching on how to do that. And go back and review it, and then say to yourself afterwards, I am storing up power with everything I think, do, and act. Because you're drawing it all in to a point, like into the heart, into the Atman. So then let's look at Bhakti Yoga. Go up to the top of the chart. The first point is lovingly conducts arati before the deities. So people are very adamant sometimes about this, right? Well, I have to do puja. I have to do arati every evening before dusk. I have to bow before the altar and do my rituals in the morning when I get up, almost first thing after I wash. And so that's what's supposed to be a ritual you do because you're supposed to, or because every devout Hindu or Christian or Muslim does the prayer several times a day. No, it has to be done under the understanding that as I do this, I'm storing up power for good. I'm storing up power for spiritual practice and for enlightenment, for realization. And all of this is going to culminate at some time. This is like the story of the woman drowning. So she cries out, the Lord comes to the shore and she says to the Lord, save me. And then the Lord says, can you think of anything good you ever did for anyone? And so she's trying to keep her nose above water and says, She remembers a river where she had seen a holy man swimming and he lost his loincloth. So she ripped off a piece of her sari and gave him something to cover himself. And she said that to the Lord. So immediately the Lord fished her out of the drink, see, and she was saved. So this is the kind of memory that you build up when you do puja and when you do arati in the evening, or when you do your salutations to the images, to the divine images every morning when you get up. This stores up power. See, the power is there and you're drinking it in, and it's storing up. I don't know how else to say it. So then offer this puja in a worshipful attitude. Then this power gets directed. Then you perform your mantra practice on and meditation on Ishvara. So you're communing with the deity. Isn't that power enough right there? So I've finished the ritual, I've done the worship, I've done the acts of worship and devotion. Now I have the great boon to close my eyes and envision the Lord. Isn't that a beautiful thing? So the Lord should be pleased with my worship. Let's look and see. Isn't that a beautiful story? I was reading Swami Vivekananda the other day. He said that there's these people that come to him and say that ritualistic worship and worship of the formless have no business together. So he was trying to figure out how to say this, and he told them, the husband and wife are already in union. So that's all they need is knowledge of their divine union. But every once in a while, the wife will lift up her veil and peek at her Lord, and then put the veil back down. You get the connection? Every once in a while, you'll leave the formless and take a peek at Ishvara. See, that's your Lord in form. So you'll lift up the veil of your eyes, which was down before because you were already in union with Brahman. You'll lift it up and you'll look at your Lord. Ah, there he is. I'd like to see him in form. Then you'll drop the veil again and go back to the formless reality. Isn't that a beautiful way of talking about how formlessness and form belong together? You can't really separate them. And how they work together, say to store up power. If Shiva stays transcendent all the time and that's all, then he's got so much power stored up, then where's he going to use it if he doesn't come into the realm of name and form? And she takes that power and distributes it amongst the holy men and women. So this is why people can be very narrow in their assessment or their understanding about God with form and beyond form. What else is here? Sing devotional hymns to the Lord and Divine Mother. Who hasn't felt good after they did that? Any hands? Have you felt bad after you did that? Well, that's because you were storing up power. That's because they were listening inside of your heart and delighting at your song. And then their smile shone forth all this power upon yourself. And you took that for the rest of the day into sleep. And the next morning, I think I'm going to go do that again. It felt so good to stir up the power of bhajan, of stotram. Bhajan is basically these hymns to God with form, and stotram is these hymns to God formless, a formless nature. And you know, they work together, like when Shankara sings. Namechor Nashanka Namejati Beda Pita Naiva Me Naiva Mata Majanmaha Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham Chidananda Shivoham, Shivoham. That's a non-dual stotram. So he's singing that to himself. How about storing up power that way? Gee, I sung to the Lord yesterday. Maybe I'll sing to myself today. You see, not my ego self, my true self. And this will store up power there. And that true self will come out. And it will benefit everyone, including myself, because that means I have no death because I was never born. I have no father, I have no mother. Napita metanaiva me janmaha, and I have no caste. You see. So who am I? I'm Shiva, I'm Shiva. So you're not singing to some Lord distant from yourself, as beautiful that is. Better yet, singing some Lord inside of yourself in form, like your Ishtam. But you're singing straight to the source of the Ishtam. And that's non-dual reality there. So this is why you look into Bhakti Yoga, what do you find? This same inclusion of non-dual reality, this time in the form of devotional hymns. Also next, engages in loving prayer for the good of all beings. That's, of course, selfless prayer you're talking about. You're not asking for anything for yourself. You're asking for the highest good of the beings in the world. Then recite from the scriptures for the family and the Sangha. Again, look into Bhakti Yoga. Don't you find Jnana Yoga there? They want you to sit down and read the scriptures to your children, to your family. That's your Sangha for now, if you don't have a Sangha out and about in this world, or if it's too far away to get to that Sangha, then you're going to go to the nearest spiritual group, or you're going to go amongst your family, and hopefully they have the same mindset as you, is that these scriptures are to be read out and talked about, and just singing the names of the Lord and reading the scriptures. It's the first two limbs of the 9 limbs of bhakti, according to Sridham, are those. Finally, fulfill the 5 yagas daily. So I will do sacrifice to the ancestors. Oh, that plant needs water. I'll run over and do sacrifice to the plant. Give it water. Bhuta yagya, deva yagya. I'll do a sacrifice to the gods by singing them a song, or by whatever, reading their scripture, by propitiating them at the altar in front of their image. And then I'll do sacrifice to mankind, Nara Yagya. So these are 4 of the 5 yagas. Pitri, do sacrifice to the ancestors who have departed. So you have these 5 yagas that you're doing constantly. And I just heard a Swami talking about it just yesterday on a recording. So very important to Bhakti Yoga, and how to connect all yogas together to integral yoga. So there, I hope it hasn't been too painful, 2 of the 4 yogas running through this beautiful new chart called the 4 yogas, 4 yoga living. And what this storing up of power looks like in a Vedantist, basically. Again, seeing the Vedantic perfection put together with the 8 limbs of yoga and storing up of power. So then let's go on to the last 2, Raja Yoga and Jnana Yoga. Of course, we know Raja Yoga, pretty much when a soul in the know, or a spiritual awakened soul, or a luminary says yoga, they mean Raja. If they mean differently, they'll say so. They say, oh, I'm talking about Bhakti Yoga here, or I'm talking about Karma Yoga here. It's pretty obvious that what devotion is and what action is. But if they just say yoga to you, they mean Raja. And they mean Patanjali's authentic, brilliant system of 8 limbs by which the soul can not only store up power, but reach the highest goal. Because the storing up of power is what we're focusing on right now. But how are you going to reach this high goal if you don't have energy and power, spiritually speaking, to walk that, to climb that tree, or to storm the highest gates of heaven, however you want to put that, or to reach the seventh chakra? This is going to take some stored up power and its application to the task. So masters the 8 limbs of yoga. I've said enough about that in this class to remind you. Second, practices contemplation and meditation. We've also said enough about that. I mean, I've pretty much done the Raja Yoga already in my discourse today. Maintains a regimen of Svadhyaya. And just look back, if you want to look at the Pancha Mahasiddhas, flip this over, you know that one of those 5 was learning how to study the scriptures properly through guidance. Can't just read it, put it down. Or at the end of your life, say, did you ever read any scriptures? Yeah, I read the Gita once, and that's it. Can you tell me anything from it? No, I can't. It's been too long. So how to study a sacred scripture from a revered personage who lived here and took all the trouble to put it together so you'd have it to study when it came time for you to remember your true nature, if you had forgotten. So this all is the definition of maintaining a regimen of daily svadhyaya. That's one of the 5 niyamas, isn't it? Svadhyaya. So we have the 5 yamas, which are ahimsa and brahmacharya and non-covetousness, asteya. But when you look into the niyamas, they're getting a little deeper towards the observance based on practice. I would say, hopefully past practice, because you shouldn't have to learn the yamas and niyamas when you're born. You should already have them. So most of us do. I mean, you look at a person who's, say, a non-practitioner, and they're nonviolent. Oh, you're a practitioner. In a past life, you mastered ahimsa. You see, because you're not violent. This is storing up a power right there. You come here and you're not necessarily an illumined soul. You're not even a spiritual practitioner. You've never heard of religion, but your nature is wearing on it. I'm nonviolent. I'm truthful. I'm not after your goods. Asteya. I'm very moderate in my appetites. Brahmacharya. These things they're wearing them on their features, and they're a part of their character, so they don't need to be religious or practice in that way. They'll only have to do that if they want liberation. It's different than salvation. So, maintain a regimen of svadhyaya. Now, achieve mastery over mind and thought. We've already said that. Now, realize Divine Mother as the Chitti Shakti. That's straight out of the slokas, the sutras of Patanjali Yoga. It's the very last sutra of the 4th pada of Patanjali Yoga. It's a beautiful Purusham Artam Shunyanam Gunanam Prati Prashavaha, he says. That emptiness that she gives you when you've put aside all the things of the world. Get thee behind me, right? Shunyanam. Gunanam, when she takes you past the 3 gunas and gives you the peace that passes all understanding. Purusham Artam, Prati Prashavaha, which gives you this equanimity of mind. She does all that for the soul, but she also strips away nature as she does, as she takes you back to your source, you see. Swarupa Pratistam, he says, to end it all. Your essence is steady, and she returns you to that steady nature who you are. So, last sutra of the 4th pada, which ends the whole scripture of Raja Yoga there, the Patanjali. So it's right there, realize Divine Mother is the Chitti Shakti. You don't have to have Patanjali come back or put words in his mouth or anything. He's already said it. Realize her as the Chitti Shakti. She's the mother of your thoughts. And know that soon she'll strip away all of this and take you back to the source. Where's the fear in that? You can't die, he's saying, basically. Death is, we just chanted that with Shankara's hymn. Namrityur nashanka name jati beda. I have no death because I was never born. Where can you find the beginning to yourself? And where will you find its end? The self is without both. It's eternal. Read my lips. Try and understand at least an English word for it. Eternal means beginningless and endless. It doesn't go through changes like that, like everything out here that's unreal does. So, you can tell this is my favorite of all these points in Raja Yoga, is to realize the Divine Mother as the mother of your chitti, as your thoughts. You see, put her in charge of your thoughts. And finally, you will attain nirbija samadhi and samyama. Nirbija means no seeds. Remember when Sri Ramakrishna said, place paddy, strew it around before the rainy season, go away, come back after rainy season. It's all sprouted. There's a riot of sprouts there. But then he says, wait, go back, take those seeds of paddy, roast them over the fire for just a little while, then strew them before the rainy season, go away, come back, nothing. See, that's nirbija. So all those seeds in your mind, you might want to be careful about where you sow them after death and before your next birth. Become aware of the dynamics of birth and death and rebirth. What to speak of life in between, sandwiched in between. So basically, that's Sri Ramakrishna's simple, easy way in a rice field of telling you about this nirbija samadhi that they get into. And I think we probably have enough time then to conclude the class, even to go into this one yoga that helps you see God. That's what I've been saying. Jnana Yoga is the one yoga that helps you see God, and the other three help the world. See, so this Jnana Yoga kind of is a little selfish. You see, it helps me, but if it helps you, it helps everyone else, because Jnana Yoga is based on the fact that all souls are one, that Brahman is in all souls, equally in quantity and quality, different in manifestation. That's how to put it in a sentence, Advaitically saying. See, that one Atman pervades every being. And it doesn't just mean humans, it means all these beings you did the sacrifices to, right? The ancestors, the insects, the plants. That one Atman exists as consciousness in everything, equal in quantity, that is, it cannot be expanded in them nor contracted in them, and in quality, it's of the highest nature. It doesn't change because of the bodies or forms, but it's different in manifestation. So the form that it does take to, it can be born as an insect, can be born as a plant, can be born as an animal, can be born as a demigod, can be born as one of your ancestors, or Nara, Narayan, a man, mankind. See, so these beings are all invested fully with that Atman, but their forms can't manifest it as much as other forms can. Or put it more positively, some forms can manifest it in a huge way. They've opened all the channels outward to manifest it. By doing what? Storing up power. I'm catching you off guard, I know, but that follows. Jnana Yoga, then what are the points there of that precious yoga? Discriminates closely between Brahman and Maya. See? Between Brahman and Maya. And I just read Swamiji say that. There's only one yoga that uses discrimination, and that's Jnana Yoga. It takes the sword out. That's its main thing, is discrimination between the real and the unreal. You don't find that in bhakti or in karma. They're too busy dancing, singing, and serving others to think that way. But this is why it's for the self. You take that sword of wisdom out, which we'll talk about next week. Ksharika is the sharp knife that cuts through everything. And You take that sort of discrimination out and you cut everything away that was in your way or that grew into your way, and therefore you see God and get free. So that's why it'll focus straight in on viveka and on false superimposition called vivarta. Oh, you have problems here with your mind? Here, take this sharp knife, cut away, and be free. Won't take you long. In Jnana Yoga, you also take a Mahavakya from the Guru and realize it. I already covered that too at the beginning of the class, right? There were 4 of them. Also put mantra in there, but we've already placed it up in Bhakti Yoga, right? Do your mantra. That's why pretty much if you had to look in to all 4 yogas and you wanted to add a 5th yoga, it would probably be mantra yoga. But you find that it's so much included in all of these other 4, particularly in Jnana and Bhakti, that it's already inherent in them, the mantra. So here you're going more toward cutting to the throat. That knife is cut away all extraneous things. Now it's going to cut here. And that's Mother's sword that takes the head, you see, by the hair and cuts away everything extraneous, returns you to your source, as Patanjali was just saying, and even strips you of your thoughts. That's why she's the Chitti Shakti. And so in that way, operates in that way. So in Jnana Yoga, you also contemplate the Atmagyan scriptures, Upanishads, Brahma Sutras, Avatuta Gita, Ashtarakka Samhita, Adhyatma Ramayana. I can go on because it's one of those 5 great siddhas is that you came upon and studied almost in order or by a matter of course all those scriptures. You put one book down and said, I'm going to the next now, I'm going to the next now, and you didn't leave any break in the flow of your swadhyaya. It's not like, oh, I spent a few years studying. No, it's not going to work. I spent my lifetime studying. That might work. And we know there's much beyond the Jnana Yoga too. I mean, we're talking about yoga as practices, so pretty soon you're going to have to get to direct spiritual experience. And it just so happens that if you have a sword and a good book, you can get there quicker than with a song or an act, or maybe a meditation. A sword and a book will do it quicker if you're talking about these 2 Jnana Yoga tools. Then open the central nadi from Anahata to the Sahasrara. From Anahata inward. And when you do that, you'll hear more about that next week, because that's what the Kurika Upanishad starts off with. It says you have to cut first above the feet, then you cut above the knees, then you cut above the thighs, then you cut at the heart. So it actually takes you through, using locations of the physical body as metaphors, how to use this sharp knife and cut away all the negativity and ignorance that's associated with these lower centers. Very beautiful. So the Kurika Upanishad is one of those several now that we've been studying, the minor Upanishads for a while, that has a very close connection with Kundalini Yoga. You can see how that Kundalini Yoga has been there in the minds of the rishis for a long time, not just in Tantra, not just in Puranas, not just in yoga, but with the Vedanta too. It's beautiful. So open the central nadi from Anahata to the Agya, it says there. And the central nadi is called the Sushumna. Sushumna, it just rolls off the lips, you see. So in the Upanishad next week, I'm jumping a lot to that, I know, but next week it tells you that first thing you're going to have to do is look at some 78,000 in your meditation, nerves, that is, channels. And when you look at those, you've got to cut them away with this knife and find the 3. Ida, Pingala, Sushumna. The Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, I used to joke. You see, this inner journey when you're discovering the new land of Atman. So find those three separate from the 78,000 others, because there's going to be a lot more of those that come into your current understanding. So that's one of the features of the Upanishad too, that it's doing that. It takes you back jumping, doesn't it, to 3 or 4 different things I've said in the last hour already about the need for study of scriptures, Swadhyaya and all that. You would have never come upon those teachings if you hadn't have kept studying deeper, deeper, deeper. And with no need to even renew your interest, what to speak of lagging interest, no need to even renew your interest. I said, I'm vested in that. That's who I am. Scriptures are me. Non-dual scriptures are us. You couldn't say us because there's only one of us at that point. Non-dual scripture am I. So ripens jnanam through recourse to raja, fulfills jnanam through application to karma, and sweetens jnanam through exposure to bhakti. Exposure to bhakti. So those three take them right in a way. So that's why putting it at the bottom of this chart, but citing its importance is that one that helps you see the self in all and in yourself. Then you put it together as integral yoga, synthesis of yoga, Purna yoga. It's been said by different great souls, even more recently, especially since Sri Ramakrishna has been here, that this integration of yoga or Purna yoga is one of the secrets, and it was given as Chaturdasha yoga by Sri Krishna back in the Gita. So we know how ancient it is. So my point here, as we come to near a close, is that all of this is a great storing up of power. How could we say karma yoga is storing up of power in the body, bhakti yoga is storing up of power in the heart, Raja Yoga is storing up power in the mind, and Jnana Yoga is storing up power in the intelligence and beyond. So this is when you're doing these 4 yogas, and these are just some of the main bullet points I was able to think about and pull out to create a chart like this. Then as you do each yoga, number 1, you're going to say, I just did that yoga, you see. You can't just mix them together indiscriminately. Somebody asks you, what did you do today? And say, I think I did karma yoga. But you could probably say that every day. Did you do it well? We'll see, because karma takes a while to come back, you see. But basically, if you're delineating the yogas in your understanding, your mind's understanding, and then you're synthesizing them overall at the end, and someone asks you that same question, you can say, I did the synthesis of yoga today, and I do that every day. I didn't just do one yoga. How's that possible? And in a sense, you don't do yoga, because that's kind of an expression that's been going on. It's a little bit, you're irritating on the advanced practitioners' thinking. You don't really do yoga. Yoga is, you are yoga. That is the union of the apparently individualized soul with the Supreme Soul. Well, we can't really move toward our ending until we take Swami Vivekananda's beautiful quote here. He says, Jnana, Bhakti, Yoga, and Karma. These are the 4 paths which lead to spiritual freedom. One must follow the path for which one is best suited. But would to God that all men were so constituted that in their minds all of these elements, philosophy, mysticism, emotion, and work, were equally present in full. So you can see he's taking English words as equivalents. Philosophy would be jnanam, mysticism would be yoga, emotion would be bhakti, and work would be karma. So you can see how he's putting that in terms for the Westerner to understand. It's they say, well, yoga is a foreign term, we don't do it, right? No, you are doing it every time you study philosophy, every time you serve someone, every time you love the Lord. You're doing these 4 yogas. So let's take yoga and make it at least the one word in the world that is non-denominational and universal. So we can use it without thinking India necessarily, or use it without thinking philosophy or work. Just basically, it covers the whole gamut. And there is one more quote here by him, which is also equally as beautiful. What this all makes me think of, is that Swami Vivekananda is one of the great teachers of yoga. Of the 4 yogas, like in this verse, Vimoksham Svatvanas Chatur Yoga Dvabihi Pritagva Samater Hitam Yokasya Cha Pritagva Samatir Hitam Lokasya Cha Pritagva Samatir Hitam Lokasya Cha Tavagya Sadayeriti Prichanaraha Vivekananda te Prabhate Prandali Vivekananda te Prabhate Pranjali Om. One of the beautiful verses out of the Vivekananda Pranjali that we like to sing. So then, to end a quick journey through this chart of the 4 yoga living, we have Swamiji's beautiful chant here. He says, "We Vedantists in every difficulty ought to ask the questions, the subjective questions. Why do I see that? Why can I not conquer this with love?" Then the abstract Advaita will become living, poetic, in everyday life. Out of hopelessly intricate mythology will come concrete moral forms. And out of bewildering yogiism will come the most practical and scientific psychology. And all of this must be put in a form so that a child may grasp it. That's the beautiful thinking and conclusions of Swami Vivekananda when he looked at the whole world and thought the 4 yogas. So I believe we've reached a good consummate ending here in this 4th and final class of Vedanta's perfection and yoga's storing up of power. We put a fine exclamation point on it. His quote actually is very apropos for that. You can see he's thinking of that kind of combination of these beautiful yogas. So then let's end the class with the chant. Jananim Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Pado Padme Tvaye Shritva Pranamami Mahur Mahur Pranamami Mahur O Ramakrishna, teacher of all, O Sharada, goddess divine, in bosom holding those lotus feet, salutations to both, ever be of mine. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om, Hari Om.